Presence, the podcast for everyone interested in bodywork, embodiment, and somatic practices. I'm Andrew Rosenstock, your host and guide on this enlightening journey. With my expertise as a somatic movement therapist, yoga therapist, and certified Rolfer, I'll merge clinical insight with real-world experience to enrich our discussions with our guests. Through engaging and informative talks, this podcast delves into mind-body paradigms, offering insights and strategies to empower personal growth. Your support is vital for our grassroots and lo-fi production. If you connect with our content, please leave a positive review and subscribe on your preferred platform. Your engagement helps us reach a broader audience and supports our mission. So thanks for tuning in today to Touching into Presence. Fasten your seatbelt as we embark on a journey to explore the transformative power of contemplative and somatic practices together. It was a pleasure to be in conversation today with Jörg Ahrend-Löns. Jorg is a certified Rolfer with over 3 decades of experience, having trained under esteemed practitioners such as Melchior and Robert Schleip. He earned his basic Rolfing certification in 1991 under Bill Smythe and Pedro Prado, and completed his advanced training in 2002 with Sultan and Michael Salveson. With a professional background in physiotherapy since 1982, Jorg brings a deep understanding of movement and structural integration to his work. From 2012 to 2023, he served as a faculty member at DIRI Europe before stepping to his current role as international representative and secretary on the DIRI Board. The week before this call, Jörg and I had a previous call, which unfortunately at the end I realized that it had not been recorded. Whoops. I was definitely bummed to have not recorded it, as it was really just an amazing call, and truthfully I was looking forward to sharing it all out to the public. However, that call is now lost to time. So what you hear today is our second call, which was equally great or even better. You hear us talking a bit about our previous call as a reference point and also as a fulcrum for growth in quite a few dimensions. I was just so very grateful for Jorg's time and wisdom today and the week before. And I'm really excited to share this talk as there are so many wonderful nuggets of wisdom here which can really create a space for a deeper embodied being. In today's talk, Jorg and I dove into the art of presence, resonance, and adaptability in client interactions. We explored how staying attuned to our surroundings and even knowing when to forget allows for a more fluid, effective response to the moment. We also unpacked structural integration, not just as a bodywork practice, but as a framework for understanding how physical structure, movement, and perception intertwine. When these elements align, they create space to acknowledge and work with deeper emotions like fear and worry rather than bypassing them. Our conversation wrapped up with a reflection on the value of collegial dialogue in professional growth and an exciting possibility of collaborating in the future. So with that all said, let's get into our talk.
Hi, Jorg. Thank you for making time again. I've only had this happen once before where I ended and didn't have it recorded. I was so bummed because I loved our talk and I was so excited to share it with people. And now we have the challenge of sorts in that we cannot recreate that talk, nor when I say should we even try to, because it was what it was. But I got so much out of the talk for a few reasons. One is that thing I wrote to you and shared with you of sort of articulating it. But I had this moment, which I don't think I shared with you, which was I had a client after the call. I was listening to her and then I just said, I'm sorry, I have to stop. And I had to acknowledge the fact that I was grieving the loss of our call. The loss of this thing
Okay.
that I couldn't actually be with my client. And actually just by acknowledging it, my embodiment changed. She noticed it. And it was just this real sensing into my own felt process. So thank you for that unintended gift.
Yeah. This is sometimes, you never know why things happen like they happen. And then if you're very aware and if you're attentive to that, I have the feeling sometimes without knowing, you dig for some really gifts or or you dig deeper than you assume or that you can think about it. And so I have the feeling I'm not only laughing because it's such a this story is sweet, and I have the feeling this will last, as long as we know each other. It will last as something which is not without humor, and it's a lot of laughter in it, and it is, for me, it's a lesson or a lecture about you never know until it's really finished, or even not finished, until you are aware of how the process is running. So nevertheless, it was a great talk, but I see this challenge, because I was, how can we repeat something which we cannot repeat? And I think it's, for me, I decided not to think about it as a problem, but as something which, this was step number 1. So I'm curious, as I was before, to step number 2. So it's just that.
Yeah, again, having done this on my very first proper call for this podcast, I forgot to record it with someone, and we somewhat tried to recreate it. So I knew as soon as I rescheduled with you, I just said, first part of me was saying, okay, how are we going to do it? What's it going to be? And then I just said, you know what? I've learned to not worry, to not be concerned. It'll be whatever it'll be. It will definitely not be the same as the first, but there's no way it could be the same as the first, because it's the second. So we'll have this fun little thing. We already built a nice rapport. At least I would say we had a nice rapport. So we will see the. I sometimes share with some of my clients who are in various points of anxiety. I'm sort of saying that I don't know if you'll know this phenomenon, but I'll say my second time at Burning Man. I don't know if you know what Burning Man is. You've heard of it. Yeah. So it's a big event in the desert, and it's a whole experience.
Yeah.
My second time was miserable, but it actually wasn't that it was miserable. It's that I kept trying to recreate the first time. And when I look back, it was an amazing time. But at that point where I was so miserable because I was looking for this thing that clearly it couldn't be. And I know that both of us are, well, I believe that both of us are wise enough to not do that. But then where it brings me to is, okay, outside of acknowledging where we were and what we are, where do we go? And I'm curious to see. I somewhat want to see if you want to lead within where we go. If there were things that either you do want to go over or to highlight, or other, or yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I take this talk, which misses just the recording. There's nothing, we didn't miss anything. I would take that as an example, and it comes to my mind when when we were talking about resonance and how can we repeat, or can we repeat? And we are both very aware that we cannot repeat, even though we have had or would have had the same words, the same wording, and we would just read it from a paper, what we said currently. I am sure it was like it's like, and that was the metaphor it came into my mind. It's like music, you can write down chords, and then you can play the music, or you can sing with your choir, and you have always the same chords in front of you, but it's always different in your expression and how you resonate with the music and how you resonate with yourself and with the people you are singing with. So I come to this example because I had this weekend, we had a rehearsal weekend with my choir I'm singing in. And so it was really, for me, it's an example that you go into resonance and still this information is there. Still, we know each of us knows the value, not even the content, but how we resonate, how we talk to each other. And I have the feeling it's it's really like a piece of music you played, and now we play something else. And and this brings me to what I really feel about my work, and how my specific approach might resonate with what we had already talking about, is that the client who comes in is always the same person. Still, this Monday, it's different to the next one. It's different to the last session. So I think it's always this theme, which I think is so important, the theme of adaptability on both sides. I mean, we want to create with our work, we want to create not only flexibility, but this ability to be adaptive in each situation. First, in the first of all, in a physical sense, but this reflects into the other levels of being. And so it's something which I think is one of the important, like your example, you work with a client and you are concerned about something else. I forgot the butter, or I forgot the milk to, or whatever, or I forgot to record the, and then it's something where we exercise ourselves in being aware, not saying, no, I'm not allowed to think about the butter I missed to buy, or I missed the recording. There is a regret, but there's also, I forgot it. So I'm in the sense and in the resonance of this permission to forget things, to not being always all over the plate, and that makes us able to respond, to be in resonance with each other, and to say, here we go. And this is one of the principles of Rolfing. So adaptability is it, and it's not only, and this is something which I think is in my work is so important. It's not only during a session, and that I think, you can create a goal in saying, I want to make someone more adaptable in this structure or in this structure or whatever. It's really something which reflects and resonate with the rest of his life. So, and on different levels. So, and what the art of Rolfing for me is really that we are, as much as we can, aware of, now I move on this level, and this reflects in this way into this level, and I can go with the flow and say, now we are very specifically in some anatomical fascial structure, and from there we can go again, here we go into the narrative, and then we are, here we go, and and it's not the narrative, or it's not the fascia itself, it's the way how things connect and relate to each other, which makes sense, which makes meaning. And that is something very and for me, it doesn't even make sense for me. It is, the important thing is that it is meaningful for the client. And then I'm kind of a part of the field in which this happens, and of course it reflects on me. So what I see now, or what I just as a full stop, is a little pause. I have the feeling this missing, and the way we had our conversation structured last time, now in this moment, this very moment, brings me into more clarity about what I want to say.
Yeah. Well, it allows for that, and for a few reasons. One is that our last call, well, there's a few things. Our last call was a lot of, to tie in Rolfing themes, was rapport building. We were getting to know each other. I was learning a lot about you. some of that I might still want to repeat so that people have an understanding of your background. But again, we'll see what comes. But there's something I'm taking from what you're saying as in resonating back to me is, and there is no way that choir thing that you had this weekend ties into it, which is lovely to hear. And I'm thinking about, I sometimes think about the quality of our voice as resonating out of the container of our being. And if our being is I played drums as a kid, so I think maybe more in terms of drums, if there's more tension in the drum in the container, it has a certain sound. And if there's not enough, so you're tuning the body in terms of a sound that can be conveyed, that again can resonate. And when you mention maybe having some regret, for me, and it's a lovely timing, because I think the weekend before, my wife, she probably won't love that I share this, but she said, "Do you ever regret marrying me?" I think it's a very common question for people to say. And I said, "No, but I don't do regrets anymore. I don't find regrets to have any real value, because you can't actually change anything. I can understand having discontentment, but there's something for that regret, and thinking about the container of that being, that there's an extra weight, there's an extra tension that the regret has." And so when we go in, for example, when I'm with my client that I mentioned earlier, and I'm having that, not quite regret, but that my attention is somewhere else, there's a discontentment, and my container is, I cannot resonate as well with the client, or I can't be as present with the client, because a part of me is not, and that's okay. There is no perfect there. I don't think we'll ever maybe have that perfect. We are working towards that more clear, but that container for resonance is not able to fully resonate with them. And so some of this I'm just kind of piecing together from your words, hitting back in this sort of ping pong. I don't know how that does all resonate for you.
It does, and it is. I think it's, I have the feeling. The question arises that what prevents? That is a big question. But what prevents this resonance? What is the factor on different levels which makes us not able to resonate? I think on a physical level, on a fascial level, it's clear that you need, as you said, like if the body is a drum, and if there is not a certain tension, there will be no resonance, because the drum is too soft. It's just, it disappears into the system, and that does not allow any reflection. A sound is a reflection of something you hit with a stick in terms of a drum, or a word is something which comes from a resonance. And I think the quality of the sound, that makes the big difference. If the body is too firm, it is all of a sudden reflection, without sinking in, without bringing your own system into a kind of a flow or a swing. And of course, the words are very different to, it's the words come out of a identification out of an emotion, which are there all of a sudden, and you become harsh, or you become aggressive, or whatever. And I think to be able to be aware about these different qualities, makes us free for a decision how we use that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it makes us. Yeah, I have another way I'm trying to build onto it. Because so much of what is keeping us, let's say, from that freedom is habit, and so we are starting to clear up limiting habits, limiting beliefs, whatever that example, the sound comes in, your voice comes in before I even have time to really process what you're saying. I'm already sometimes going just back, and that I learned this somehow, that if I respond too quickly, a lot of the times that's not actually what I meant. That it was, and so I would try to have the information come in and sit a little bit, which can be awkward, because here we're like, for you and me, I don't think it is, but if we're in a regular conversation and someone says, some question, and we say, that there's almost an expectation sometimes for a quick response, but that quick response most of the time is happening in a habitual place, and it's not from a deeper sense of presence or awareness. And again, like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I agree completely. And I think it's, to have a conversation in which you are not, for whatever reason, you are not in a hurry. We could go and say, Andrew has only 1 hour time and nobody wants to listen more than 45 minutes. So we have to go through anything in 45 minutes. If this remains as a feeling of hurry, I'm sure our response or our talk will be different. If we, as last time, you mentioned that in the last talk, wow, this 1 hour is like it's gone, like wind, or like you are completely surprised how it felt so short, and it was a full hour of talking intensively. So we know all this phenomenon that the time is kind of it feels different, and I think that's to give yourself permission to have a pause. It's again the metaphor in music is. It took me quite a long time um, to learn how important pauses are. That you take a breath and then you start again. And this is something which this metaphor led me into my sessions. There's an analogy to my sessions that I think, wait a minute. But on the other hand, it's a kind of a challenge that if you lean back too much, it's difficult to confront again. So the pause has to be the right, it's like a rhythm. And this is what my teachers were talking about, I remember Peter Melchior was talking about rhythms and how we follow, and how and that the art and the experience sometimes expresses itself by learning these rhythms with different people, like with different instruments. You have different rhythms in different instruments, or in different voices, or in different pieces of music, or in different bodies. So it's really how to play that. That's the art.
Yeah, and your concept of resonance is really hitting home more. I mean, if you're in a choir, you're all resonating together. Ideally, that's the goal, and so you have to learn how to. Somebody new comes in, you have to learn, how do they fit in with us? How do we fit with them? Because if they are a little too more rigid, the resonation of it is not going to quite land. But I'm thinking about what you're saying as far as if you step far too back, and it's so much about how do we meet the person. So you and I right now can step back a little more, because the way that I'm even thinking about it is, when your words hit me, when they land on me, they kind of come and they're, because of the speed, they don't visually, I'm sort of going back into the side. There's this sort of, again, I think if you hit a drum and it has a less tension, it goes down, but it doesn't go straight down. The texture of the drum folds. Whereas if we were okay, Jorg, that rhythm, that resonance is coming back and forth. In that case, the drum, the head has a tightness that goes. So in that case, if we had that speed and you did step back, it wouldn't resonate. You might be able to shift the resonance there over time. But here, when in this case, we are able to be in more of that. And even what I noticed, as I mentioned about the sort of at first the speed, your speed changed in how you were speaking to me. It slowed down a little bit, and so that we could again drop into this. I don't love saying higher and lower because those are still some sort of concept that isn't it. But well, I'll say there was a lower level of which we could resonate at a deeper level. I would presume we could. I'm not going to do this. I've done this before, but we could sit here and not say anything for a few minutes. We would have a ball. We would get a lot out of it because of even across the screen, there is this felt resonance.
Yeah, right. And I think, the difference between when I come back, for the two of us, it seems to be easy. Yeah. We didn't know that before, but it seems to be easy that we play the same, let's say, the same rhythm. We are doing music together, so it's something like that. I know a little bit better what kind of drum you are, so that but a little bit more about me. But if you have the unknown, and that was something we had last time as well, the unknown is that this is, although we know a little bit better, it's not really that I know you, and I'm still curious, and I'd just be in a state of curiosity and don't take it for granted. No, Andrew is not like that. Andrew is what he is, or what it seems to be for me. I perceive him as whatever, and I am what I am right now. So it's something which is it's just a curiosity to not a specific kind of part of you. It's really about oh, how wonderful if someone is open enough to show up as he or she is right now. Like, I see there's no obstacle, And what I see in clients, there are obstacles. But what I do is, and they are not aware of that. They don't even know about these obstacles. And it's not that I know about their specific obstacle, not at all. But I feel I use, so to say, I use the resonance or the difficulty to come into resonance as an instrument, as an indicator to say, aha, here, oh, this is interesting. So that feels in my body, it feels like a drum without tension. Or it is a drum with too much tension, or whatever it is, or it's a small drum, and this client wishes he would be a bigger drum, or whatever, what. It's a body picture, and it's not good, or there's a judgmental part in it. So whatever the obstacle is, I'm not so much interested in what kind of obstacle that is. I think for me it's more, let's say, helpful, to see this as something which needs to be explored, in terms of level, in terms of timing, and if there is a backup. And I said, okay, leave me alone. This is too close.
Mhm.
It's my instrument. It's my refinement in my professional work as a body worker to notice that and acknowledge that,
Mm.
and not going into the obstacle, which I did. I mean, I try to prevent myself all the time from being the best clinical Rolfer and physiotherapist in the world. And this means that everybody has to adapt to my assumptions and to my things, to my concepts about themselves. So this is something which I completely drop, because it's, first of all, it's very exhausting for me and for the client, and it's not even interesting, because it's a power game then. Let's say it
Well, yeah, it's not
drastically.
interesting when it's not interesting once you realize that, and that's the whole trick is how do you get off that path? Well, you have to actually even realize you're on it, which most of the time we don't. So we do push, we do lead, we do whatever until there comes a time, which not everyone does get, where we realize, oh, that actually has
Yeah.
really no value outside of my ego, my wanting for things to be the way that I think they should be.
Yeah, and we do it, of course, to be, I mean, it's not necessarily a power game in terms of having a big ego or have the power. It's sometimes we hide
Mhm.
behind this concepts and this expertise in order not to resonate with ourselves.
I'm going to go back with that because I like what you said, and I think it can tie us back into something. So
Hmm.
what I'm hearing from you sort of is, people are coming, they have an unknown and an end. You are not trying to necessarily go into that unknown, but rather you are sensing this. I use the word barrier, or you're sensing
Hmm.
some sort of thing, and they are too. I mean, that's why they're coming. They're coming because they need help with something. They don't know what it is. There's a block. There's a barrier. You're saying that by resonating with them, you are helping them dis- discover more of what that is without telling them. And this is, I think, also what you're where you shifted, and where I agree with you is telling them is a power move. You are putting your sense of what is upon it, whereas helping them discover the barrier, figure it out. Is it a physical? Is it a psychological? Is it a energetic? Is it whatever? And of
Is
course,
it a barrier at all?
is it a
Or
barrier
is
at
it
all? Mhm.
or is it just the assumption that it is
Mm.
a barrier?
But
It could be.
but I would still say that that's a barrier. That the assumption of a barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
It addresses just a different level. Yeah,
yes,
right. Right.
exactly. So, but spot on. And so, what you are doing as a body worker is not always necessarily about the body specifically as a physiological mass or as an object,
Mhm.
but you are working with the the human being. This is what I got out of last time, and I'm hoping to share more because it when I left our call last time, the word structural integration meant something entirely different to me because I realized, and I had known this, I just hadn't put it together, that structure is not the structure of the body, but we are integrating the structure of the being, the whole human being.
Mhm.
And it just it was I mean I could have cried afterwards because it's where I'd been it's what I'd nothing has changed really in how I approach the work, but how I frame the approach of the work, how I can explain it shifted, and
Mhm.
that was revolutionary.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can I I hear it, and even though we are connected by a screen,
Mhm.
it's really I could feel it. I have a felt sense of what you are saying, and I think what comes into my mind as a response, and it was in the background and talking to me, was uh, was that I see, I see the I see the being as something informative. It's a whole story. It's information. It's pure information. And what helps to understand and to get a sense, your sense of this information without judging it, without finding even words quickly, is that I think that now, after 30 years of being a Rolfer, I have the feeling that I can bring this information into a certain order. Being human being, the whole human being, it's a big word, and it's it's all. I mean, it's almost untouchable. It's something which is completely too complex, too. How can I understand? I don't understand myself. How can I understand anybody else? So to bring this information I got from someone into a kind of a structural order, into levels of this is a rough, and still, even if I go and say, yeah, you have the physical structure, you have the coordinative structure, you have the perceptive structure, and you have the psychobiological structure, which is meaning, is a rough pattern, but it's a start for refinement. And if I know the level, I know where to proceed, how I can go on, and how can I refine and say, now I have now I understand much more about that, and by relating these levels to each other, then I come to what I said in our last talk was, then we come into a conversation either with the client or with ourselves, or the client with him or herself. So it's and then language is something which is, as we said, it could be an expression which could be very, very helpful to understand, and then from there you go into the felt sense, and then sometimes you are moved, and it's like a piece of music, and that it happened in the weekend when we sang a piece of a British composer from the mid of 18th century, where you just cry, you cannot sing, where you just, you are so touched and so moved, and it's not the word, it's the choir, it's the music, it's how you resonate to that, and it touches your heart, and then you are moved. How can you help? You cannot prevent yourself. And I learned not to prevent myself from this kind of, and sometimes it's even the client where I'm so touched, and I had to stop now. I had a pause because I'm so, it's not that I'm close. I know my field, and I'm not melting into the client. It's not that. It's really, I'm here and the client is there, and it resonates in a way that my heart is moving. So, or is being touched. So that is not always for God's sake, it's not always the case, but it could be there, and I think to bring that into order and find back into to integrate that's something where I have the feeling it helps if you have a kind of a structure.
Well, I'd say, even thinking about why does that music, for example, make some people cry and some people not? Well, both of those two people have a different structure of their experience. And so
Right.
the resonation of it, not just the resonation of the notes, but how that music resonates with them. If there's a certain structure that allows for things to flow in a certain way, you have I think of like, pathways. Well, you can get pathway A, and if it doesn't resonate, it's going to go to the left and go to pathway B. And so there's a different resonation, but that's all within the structure of experience, which is the structure of being. The being comes out of it. I have no idea how to tie this in, but what's coming up to me is that the word for heart chakra is anahata, and anahata means the unstruck drum, because the heart in this mythology is a drum that was never struck. So the resonance of it does not actually have a structure to fit in, because it's, you could say love is beyond structure of some sort. And so just thinking of that
Exactly. Yeah, but it's, what you are mentioning is something. It's an expression of something where I said, you can differentiate the different parts, but it will be just, it's a metaphor. It helps you to to orient yourself in the unknown, to orient yourself in something which you cannot structure at all. How can you just, it's just something which arises as love or as tears in the physical level or whatever. Yeah, you can call it whatever it is, but it is, but still it's just a word. But the sense of it, the felt sense of it, it's huge. I mean, it's sometimes it's unexpressible. It's not even, you cannot find any expression for that.
Yeah, people, go on.
Yeah, just an example from this morning. I had a client, I know her for a long, long, long time. She was very sportive. Now she is in the end of her 50s. And she always is concerned with her body because she has very strong muscles. She's a very, very good bike driver and she's, like races and things like that in her earlier ages. So now she is, and she has a lot of pain in the back and here and there, and it's always that her mind is kind of trying to understand how the complexity of her being, of her body, first of all. And from pain, it's now at a level where I have the feeling, now it's becoming more complete and more, pain is not so much a concern anymore. But today she came with very clear, and I was happy that she did, with very clear, and said, I have the feeling this thing with the hip and the back, it has something to do with my right toe. And you already worked on this right toe. And I have the feeling it would be good that to start there, because I have the feeling I cannot land really on my right foot. So we worked on that. I worked on the toe, and then she came up and we tried out, and she was sitting without touching the ground on the bench, not on the bench, on the table, and she said, "Oh, I'm afraid to touch the ground." And I said, and then she was up to jump on the ground. I'm afraid to, because she was, of course, she had the feeling she had to go. I said, wait. Where's that feeling? Where's that feeling of being afraid to touch the ground? And she showed in her body, and then it comes to the, and then it comes, and she was kind of, she went back. She was like, pushes a little bit back, so she went behind her sit bones, and that causes pain in her shoulder because there was a lot of tension. And then I said, I asked her, what is behind, what is this feeling of making you afraid of touching the ground? And she said, yeah, I have the feeling it's connected to this question of wrong or right. Do I do wrong or right? And then a big pause came, and then she said, and this prevents me from coming front.
Mm.
And I said, yeah, and from breathing, and she came front, and she said, wow, now the tension is less, I can breathe, but it's really always the anxiety of doing wrong.
Mm.
I do this in my profession, I do that in my sports, I do that in blah, blah, blah. It's always this judgmental process in the mind of, am I right?
Mhm.
And that prevents the body from coming front, from breathing, from there. And of course, this causes tension in the shoulder. And then she slowly, and I said, go with this feeling. Don't try to get rid of the feeling of being afraid of doing right or wrong. Go with this feeling, but find your way to find a decision of touching the ground with this foot. And then she stood up slowly in a appropriate kind of time, and she said, "No problem at all,
Mm.
physically."
Mhm.
And I was, that was for me very clear that even if there is a uncomfortable feeling or an anxiety, an emotion, it's something which is important to integrate into the physical structure, into the movement, and into your perception, and to take it serious, to acknowledge what you feel. This is what I feel. I'm afraid to touch the ground. Boom, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes me think of. I always get the APA, the anticipatory postural. I always give the last A stands for that.
Mm-hmm.
We deal with as Rolfers, and thinking about that the it is coupled there. There's an anticipation both physiologically happening, but is that physiologically happening because there's a psychological or mental, you might say, and
Mm-hmm.
which is actually happening first, which is informing it? It'd be hard to know, but I'm positive that if you were able to change the physiology, that the worry wouldn't go away, that there would still be
Yeah.
some, but by having her come into not the story of it, not the, oh, I'm worried because when I was 5, but just right now, right here, there's a sense of worry. There's a sense of right and wrong. And just that, not going into the story of it, but just that right there, allowing them to recognize that. And then if it's comfortable for them, which it was for her, have her step into it. Because pushing them, as you know, pushing them into someplace where they're not ready for is the surest way to backfire. Yeah.
Absolutely.
um,
Enough experience with that.
yes, same. So allowing that is changing the structure of their being and of their body, because as that worry melts away, there's the tension melts away, because the tension is held partly from this anticipatoriness of, locking up in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And I think it's sometimes it leads, this is my experience, and this is maybe for Rolfers is very let's say maybe an information which is helpful is sometimes it does not lead into um let's say decreasing pain.
Mm.
The symptom is still there, but it leads you slowly through the body to the part of the body where it's still missing, where it's not going through, where the structure is not responding, where you have no resonance, and where you have not even problems, but there is a holding deep inside, like in the other client where I have the feeling it's really the part around the heart, and how is the heart on top, in the physical sense, on top of the diaphragm, organized front and back. How can it lean into a walking movement, lean into the chest to the front, and how can the heart relate to the front of the spine, for example? And so that it's the heart which maybe or the heart space, the mediastinum, which is not following into this contralaterality, and it's not the spine which is the problem. It's the expression sometimes is in the spine, or the problem in parentheses maybe is the spine, but it's on a different level. It could be something else in front of the spine, which does not allow the full range of adaptability and movement and flexibility in a function like even walking or breathing, and that's something where I have the feeling that if one part or the other is not oriented within a movement, it's a holding, which is very natural because the system is protecting you against anything else, and not all compensations are bad, not at all. It's the best the body can do at the moment. But if you want to have more options, if you want to have or develop more freedom, you need to confront yourself with these deep things, and it's even not, and sometimes it's even not the big drum, which is the important thing. It's really maybe a different stick.
Yeah.
A small, tiny part, maybe a small, tiny screw and a turn in the screw, which makes the whole difference. So that's something where I come to see even the little things and say, wait a minute. Let's see how this impacts the body or the system.
I actually really like what you did there by shifting here I am talking about the object, and you shifted it. What if the drum isn't the issue, but how the drum is being hit? By the external object, or the instrument, the stick in this case, or the mallet.
Yeah, because of course we are kind of, our expression is a result of internal and external situations or changes in your environment or whatever. We respond to that. And we do it with, as you said, like we do it with our habits. And on which level this is being expressed as something which depends on the instrument you are. But it's it's something which goes along with how we getting hit and where.
Well,
it's different if it's the knee or if it's the shoulder.
It's also different thinking of structural integration. If I come into a session for a client and I'm acting a part, or I'm saying, okay, I need to be a certain way, the structure of the session is different. And before we even touch them, in that the structure of the session is these two people, but now the way that I'm coming at it has a different shape to it, a different structure to me. So the structure of the session is different, and the structure of how that person is going to be responding or resonating to me is different. And so all of this was in some way what was so revolutionary, is that all of this is structure. And if we're going to be structural integrators, we have to be really aware of the structures at play, which is more than just the physiology.
Right. And I have the feeling, since I'm aware of that, and since I'm kind of able to play with that, it's more useful for people, it's more useful for myself, and it's more pleasurable, more enjoyable. And it's really kind of, this is the reason, I mean, by talking to you, Andrew, it's really, I'm very aware of what kind of gift I have being a Rolfer. you know, to be, you know, that it's nothing of what we are talking about is random. It's really somehow, it's really a result, and a result of all the development we went through, and and uh, and sometimes it's good to reflect with someone who understands what you are talking about.
Well, hopefully people
Thank you.
listening, yeah, hopefully people listening as well get something. But if not, we do. And
We cannot help. I mean, this is the only thing you know, I had just an American client, and he's very concerned because he comes from a transsexual background,
mm,
and he is very concerned. He's living in Germany, and is married to a German woman. So it's something where I have and he's very much concerned, and he was really talking about, yeah, what can I do from here to respond to this very, let's say, scary times which seems to appear right now.
mm,
And he said, you know, as long as that doesn't touch my personal situation, it was quite, I mean, it was a political, let's say, response. But in the moment when it's about, you know, gender question, it became very, very personal. So it was all of a sudden, he was really, in the literal sense, he was touched by that theme in a complete different way.
mm,
Because now it's personally scary, because this is something which is not accepted and acknowledged by the government right now. And there are directions in which that develops, which are really for not only for this is for people who are in this field. It's very scary.
mm,
And so I have the feeling that resonates with the body, and I could feel that in my system as a resonance of, well, yeah, I see you, I feel you, even though I'm not, you know, I'm not personally touched by that so much, because
mhm,
first of all, I'm German. Second, I have quite normal gender life. You know, I identify with myself as a man,
mm,
a male person. So, but I could feel this concern. I could feel it in. Oh, it took the breath away. So
mm,
then we are on the physical level again, and say, okay, we can use that as something which, okay, do I need to hold my breath because of that? I don't want that, but it's a matter of fact that it is like that. So how can I be adaptive again? How can I find ways of not being identified in that way?
mm.
So that's, yeah.
Yeah, and there's what's coming up for me. I don't actually, I don't want to, it would take too long to go down it, but just to name it is a common thing I hear from especially newer practitioners, but even older ones, is how not to take your clients home with you. And I think in some way you've just sort of,
Ah,
yeah, not actually home with you, but how to like,
I know what you
yeah,
mean. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I know what you mean.
And it's just that is noticing, is really just noticing, oh, I'm in session and I'm holding my breath. I'm resonating to the
Absolutely.
resonance of this person, and how to not, there is a value a little bit to mirroring. Look, I'm holding my breath, and now I can let it go and they can. But for the most part, is really just that, to recognize how much we do resonate, and how to let that down, or release that, or whatever the words would be. It's a longer conversation, I realize.
Yeah, but very briefly,
Mhm.
uh, I went along with this question for a long time, and always have the feeling it's, if you take this, what we teach, that to find the right, like, I think it's not a nice word, but to keep a professional distance without being objective on one hand, and on the other hand, without melting with the client. I think it's always something which and I see it really as a movement. If you are going from your professional, from your from your, if you lean too much into the client and not taking care of being with yourself at the same time, then it happens that you carry the client with you at home. And I think this is an expression for, it's not even too close. You can lean into your client and being very objective and saying he has clinical blah 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 problems, blah blah. It's not that. It's more that it's a disbalance between staying with yourself and staying with your resources on one hand, on the other hand, from there you lean without losing this stability. So that's, for me, an expression for an appropriate relationship. And then it's experience and exercise.
Yeah.
But what it means personally for every new Rolfer, or for Rolfers, or for therapists for all the, what it means individually, that's hard to say. But I think it's really, in general, it has to do with a disbalance of being too much in the outside and not so much connected to yourself. And I think one part of it, particularly in Germany, it's something that this question of, if I'm a therapist, I have to take care of the people. And that is not true entirely, because they take care of themselves. What I take care of is that I'm not forcing people to something which they don't want, even though they might not know that they don't want it. Yeah, but the system responds. And that, again, is something which goes along with my resonance with myself, saying, I feel that. I feel that I'm going too far. I feel when I'm going, if I'm not decisive enough, for example, or whatever. So that's always a matter of balance for me.
Yeah, and my experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we learn that feeling by going too far or by not going far enough. And so it is the constant learning of, oh,
Oh,
yeah,
if you miss the
yeah,
even after 30 years,
yeah,
you should stop your work.
yeah, yeah,
If this is not happening anymore, I would say exactly what you said. It's because there is no defined line from which on it's too much or too less. It's an area. It's something where you move into, where it is not clear,
Yeah, it's one of the things that for me, what's been most helpful is calls like this, and calls with colleagues, which is also one of the reasons I wanted to create the conversation so people could hear other people. It's that I leave a session and I'm not sure about something, and I talk with a colleague and they give their input. And I don't have to accept their input, but I can say, oh yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about one recently that happened. It was between colleagues of something I said, and another colleague said, hear me, he said, you really missed the moment. And I was like, no, I didn't. And then a few days later, I said, yeah, I did. I didn't see what he said, and I realized, and in that, the way of responding next will not be missed in the same way. It is now, oh, okay, I can see how I responded, how I thought. I fully believed that what I was doing was the best thing. And now I realize, no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
That's how yeah.
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 Well, here we are now at about an hour, and again, like I said last time, I think we could talk for hours and hours, but I want to respect your time, listeners' times, all that sort of thing. But is there anything that you feel like, yeah, I still would like to express or share or put out for now?
No, Andrew, it's really I think it's a good moment for making a pause. And I'm sure if one or the other of both of us is interested in continue with the talk and have a question, we can continue. I'm very open. I think it's not only for me. It's beyond. It's beyond the opportunity to talk about my work. It's really more an exchange from colleague to colleague with interesting inputs and inspirations. Not only for you, for me. It's as I said, it's sometimes it's good to reflect with someone about what you are doing, because parts of what I'm doing are more or less unaware. I'm not aware in this precise manner. It, always, or when you work, it's more that it's more intuitively in the background, kind of like a sound, which is good. But every now and then it's good to have a good chat about what you are doing.
Yeah, well, the one of the things I started doing in this year is what I call colleagues corners, which of this talk will be, which is just two or more colleagues just talking. And then originally, the original call in some way was to highlight you more, and I just didn't want to have you retell your origin story per se, because I think there's something nice about it. But I also, for me, when new clients will ask, "How did you get here?" What brought you on this path? After saying it so many times, I just want to be in this other, sort of place. So I didn't want to bring you down there, but I'm glad to hear that while we did dance around your theme of resonance, that it wasn't just about that it was a back and forth, enriching conversation.
Yeah. And I mean, my origin is if you talk about that, I can briefly say what I already said, that I express my gratefulness for my teachers I had, like Peter Melchior, or Pedro Prado, or Bill Smythe, and my advanced teachers, Michael Salveson and Jan Sultan and Tessie Brungard. They are all very, very important. Even my physiotherapy school teachers, they are all kind of masters of learning to master my own expertise, my own Rolfing career, in a way that I can explore what in which field I'm the best on, and to even to be, or to in my I mean I was a teacher in DIRI, so, and I'm still in the faculty, but I'm resigned from it because of saying, yeah, I'm coming into an age where I have the feeling it's too I have to take care of my resources again. So and my family is big enough, so it's it's something where it's nice to have a short thank you for all these people who make me what I am, or help me to develop what I am right now. So
And I think Hubert Godard was in your list last time too.
again,
Hubert Godard, I think, was in your list
yeah,
last time.
Hubert Godard, Peter Schwind. I mean,
Yeah.
they are all Harvey Burns. They are all and the Dharma. I mean, I'm doing a practice in which of course is even beyond rolfing and what we are doing professionally. It's really something which of course helps. It's for me, it's an ideal combination of trying to find answers, full stop.
Yeah. Well, maybe for another call, we'll talk about that and how Dharma, in particularly, and Rolfing relate for
Connect.
you,
Yeah.
because for me they are they're very much one and the same. But
Yeah. Did you read the articles of Jeff Maitland about that?
I don't know if I've read those ones.
He wrote an article about how this is connected. Zen. He was a Zen. Even
Yeah,
a Zen.
I've read it. I've read all. He has, I think, 4 books, and one
Yeah.
of them's about spinal manipulation, but the other 3 are very philosophical and deal.
Yeah. Right.
And Zen Body Mind, I think it's called, deals with Zen, and
Yeah.
Spacious Body deals. He in the beginning talks about Pure Land Buddhism. So I think that, and then also bringing his view of Heidegger into it, I think is very very important. I have an article coming out in the next issue about phenomenology and body work. I'm working on an article possibly about, I think I mentioned this last time, about the Heart Sutra and
Yeah.
and SI. I'm not sure what'll come of that, but if you do happen to have that article by Maitland anywhere handy, send it. I can also look in Pedro's library. I'd be curious. But anyways, for another call.
Yeah.
So I thank you for your time yet again. It's been rewarding for me, and I'm not looking too far ahead, but thinking, being in the moment, but aware that the last time we spoke, my practice shifted for the better, and not to give you pressure, but curious to see how this will also impact that, because it already has been pretty helpful to shift some ideas.
Yeah. Thank you for thank you for that, Andrew. And I think it's vice versa. I can say talks like that always shifts my awareness to a certain point, or make it more clear for me, and make it's as I said already, that it's more clarity, or sometimes more awareness of right, exactly. Interesting what I'm saying right now about my work, or by even how you respond, to see what kind of thoughts you have about that. Of course, inspires again my understanding, and that's thank you for that.
My pleasure. Ciao, auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to us at Touching into Presence. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. You can find out more about Jorg at rolfing-gottingen.de. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate it if you'd leave a positive review of the podcast and subscribe to it through the platform of your choice. When you do this, it really helps other people find us, and we greatly appreciate your support. We look forward to hearing back from you and seeing you on our next conversation at Touching into Presence. Bye for now.